Like
Right.
Webinar is now streaming live.
So we've got the stream live, and I'm going to press the broadcast button now. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Live.
Yeah. We're on. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Yes. Well, let's see. Can we see who's on? Yes. So I can see who's coming on at the moment. So for those who's coming on, we're just waiting for the numbers to go up and for everyone to join. So just bear with us and look at our wonderful faces for a while, and that'll be good. And then we can get started in a couple of minutes.
What should we do with our wonderful faces as people come in?
I don't know. It's a shame that they can't tell us directly, but you know, maybe we can sort of exercise some form of telepathy and listen in to what they want from us. Let me think.
Oh yeah, I can hear somebody wants a bit of this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. A bit of that.
We can read their chat. Jeremy Miller says, hiya.
Hiya, Jeremy.
Hello.
Wonderful. Okay. Hi, everyone. Hello, Juliet.
Yeah. Hello.
Hmm.
Let's remember to look at the camera. Hello.
Okay, that's good. So yes, as people are joining and adding to the list of attendees, just to repeat the point. Oh, hello. Oh, Juliet, you smiled. Well, we feel your smile. We can't see it, but we feel it. So thank you. Hello, Alex. Wonderful. So to all of those just joining, we're just waiting for it to reach the numbers of all the attendees, hopefully that's actually signed up, and then we'll get started very formally on the proceedings of the evening.
Proceedings, yes.
Yes.
Well, there might be a point at which the numbers settle.
Exactly, yes. So I think I'll give it, should we give it 1 more minute or something like that? And then we'll get started. Okay. That's good. Hello, Sally. How are you doing? I'm waving. I'm hoping you're waving back. And again, I'm imagining you waving back, and it looks lovely. Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Okay then, so let's get started. So everyone, welcome to our virtual exhibition at Swedenborg House in collaboration with the Royal College of Art Writing MA programme. Now, this exhibition is connected to a wider ongoing project with Swedenborg House, which aims to tell the story of Swedenborg in 99 objects, which are taken from the Swedenborg Collection. And the Swedenborg Collection is a wide and varied archive of materials containing a wealth of items charting the history of the Swedenborg Society and Swedenborgian ideas. This includes documents signed by Swedenborg, as well as volumes of Swedenborg's work, annotated or inscribed by the likes of Samuel Taylor Coleridge, John Flaxman, and also includes the manuscript of D.T. Suzuki's translation of Swedenborg's Heaven and Hell. And this collaboration with the RCA has been facilitated by Sally O'Reilly, who is a tutor on the RCA writing programme, who I will hand you over to now.
Thanks, Denise. Thank you. And thanks for that introduction. But also, I want to thank you, and also on behalf of all the students, for your support throughout the project. And I'd also like to thank a few other people as well, while I've got you all. I want to say thank you to Avery and Steve for shaping and carrying the whole project so sensitively, given all that's happened over the last 6 months. And thanks to Alex for his scholarly guidance through the archive. And Alex also has his hands on the levers behind the curtain right now. And thanks to James for putting the publication together so beautifully. And for those of you who don't have a copy, a hard copy, you can download a PDF from the Hellish Love event page on the Swedenborg Society website. And I also want to say thanks to Jake for shooting that spectral footage around Swedenborg House and in the archive, which you'll see in the upcoming short film programme tonight. But also thanks to the other people that I don't even know the names of, who I haven't met, who make Swedenborg House run so smoothly. I'm going to tell you some numbers now. I'm going to tell you a bit more about the publication, which the students have put together. It comprises 17 texts, which is one per member of the cohort of the writing programme. And then this evening, you're going to be treated to 9 readings from those texts in the form of short films, and they're between 2.5 and 20 minutes long. And the programme is 45 minutes in total. And there's also, I should also mention the work of turning it into a coherent programme, the production, editing and sound design, which was done by Cicely Scarlett and Harold Smart and John Christopher. And a bit of background to the project. Every year, the RCA writing programme collaborates with a different external organisation. And the aim of this is kind of to give people an opportunity to work in a new context with all the excitements and challenges that this brings. And I think this year, what was particularly challenging, pandemics aside, but what was particularly challenging was the weight of history of Swedenborg himself, and the society, and the sense of responsibility that comes with working in an historically important archive. But what was great was that rather than getting bogged down by this, the students were incredibly resourceful and resolute. And they said really early on that they wanted to exercise their relationship with the unknowable and to invite other voices into the archive through their writing. And they decided that they wanted facts and knowledge to be left fragmentary and tentative, and to animate them through speculation and digression and personal experience. And I think just a final thought about the title of this evening's film event and the publication is Hellish Love. For Swedenborg, hellish love was love of the self and of the world, as distinct from divine love. And to reflect this, the students have written texts that turn at once inwards and outwards. They're considering the self and the world, and together all of their texts create a quite complex web of themes. And there's many parallels and crossings and foreshadowings and echoes. And for me, this makes really apparent this group's enmeshment. They're a great group of people who work together really well, and I think it demonstrates their influence on and support for one another, as well as reperforming the messy interconnectedness of life, history, the universe, and everything. So I think on that mega dilation of scale, I'm going to leave you to watch the work. So thanks for joining us and enjoy.
visitors, Emanuel Swedenborg would walk his garden. He would observe the work of his own hands within the garden, and he would walk across it to his summer house at the West End where he would write. His thoughts would unravel into words as his eyes overlooked this garden. Kristen King writes that his garden is a useful metaphor, laid out along formal lines but with eccentricities and flourishes, all nicely reflecting Swedenborg's own mind. Open but protected, useful and abundant with life. If his garden is viewed as a metaphor for his mind, each natural thing representing a thought, it is suggestive of a correspondence between outside and inside things, between tangible and intangible worlds. Charles Baudelaire, who was strongly influenced by Swedenborg's writings, wrote that Swedenborg taught us that heaven is a great man, that everything, shape, movement, number, colour, scent, in the spiritual as in the natural, is meaningful, reciprocal, opposing, corresponding. Baudelaire's trees, living pillars, are symbols as they stand. To put a hand upon its bark is to touch a symbol. One visitor, long after Swedenborg's death, recounts his pilgrimage to Swedenborg's summer house in 1895. Professor Carl Theophilus Odner claims it disappointing, laid out for the benefit of tourists, and of the once famous and extensive garden, nothing now remains, excepting perhaps a very ancient and decaying poplar tree just outside the summer house. If it was Odner who pulled a fragment of bark from this old tree, perhaps it was with a sense that he was tearing a veil between the tree and something beyond, between the natural object of the tree and its spiritual life. Holding the piece of dead wood, he sought a connection by touch, across time, to Swedenborg. This collected fragment its reliquary-like container might, in a box bearing a dispensing chemist's name, James Tilson, of Tidegoat, the fragment of bark perhaps found its way into the collection via Odner's friend, the Reverend Robert James Tilson, sharing the chemist's name and also from Tidegoat, librarian for the Swedenborg Society in the 1890s. Under Tilson's name, some blotting paper and a wax seal came into the collection. There is an urge to draw a connection between these objects. They are all things taken from their context, no longer really useful, holding invisible traces of touch. The blotting paper, soaking excess drops of wet ink, gestures towards the unidentifiable writing it dries, books closed, letters folded. The wax seal suggests closed writing, correspondence, and the weight of a hand pressing into its warm softness. The bark evokes a leaning hand, wandering eye, a natural thing given a name and secret life by the hand that touches it.
Test for negative. Test for eyes. Negative. That's negative eyes. It's heavy, isn't it? They say the brain of a genius weighs, but never mind that. Take a seat, won't you? No, not there. That's my seat. I'm joking. You look so pale. How was your journey? On your way here? It's a funny one. The best directions I can give are don't look back. Any diversions? Wrong turns? A few wrong turns? To be expected. Who can blame you then for looking so pale, so lost? I can see that you're lost. Test for safety. Negative. Is it true, the stories I've heard? His body was quite intact when they opened the coffin. Oh, the worms, the maggots must have stamped their little feet in protest. They must have revolted and writhed for the injustice. What do maggots sound like when they've been betrayed? I imagine they sound very like us. I imagine a lot of pitiful creatures sound more like us than we care to think. Have you revolted? Writhed? In the grip of rage? Ecstasy? Oh, No, but then the air set to work on the body, didn't it? Chewing away at him until just the bones remained. You were quick to grab his skull, weren't you? What else have you taken? How much do you want for it? Test for fog. Positive. Fog enters the mind. Fog drags lights and faces with it. The fog tonight was heavy. Are you a heavy sleeper? You dropped like a weight through the fog. I can see that. You passed quietly from there to here. Here. See these marks? These scratches on the cranium? Not etchings. Not handled with care. Lines like these are produced by hours staring at the same snowy window, listening to the same sheet snapping in the wind. Lines like these are learned. This skull held winter. Winter breathes in blades. Test for electricity. Inconclusive. That's funny. Inconclusive. Is that so? Oh no, that can't be right. Surely there's been someone who passed like a current through. No. Someone. No. I can see it. Just once, at night. Distant lightning. Test for teeth. Negative. There are no teeth. They're gone. They have been sold, I assume. There should be one tooth left, but that doesn't matter. I can imagine. Yes, I can. No, I'm not expecting anyone. That's just the wind. The wind here knocks. Come in. I'm only joking. You're trembling. Where's your jacket? Your belongings? In a room somewhere, no doubt. I imagine there are plenty of things in rooms that assume the folded, forlorn quality of the forgotten, the abandoned. Test for doors. Negative. Door to fields, door to the sea, door to old clothes, door to her smile, door to busy streets, door to sleep, all closed. Tomorrow's door is painted, and there are more tests. Test for damage. Positive. Thank you for your tooth. The blood's a nice touch. Test for tears. Positive. On your knees. Down. Stay. Try to writhe. Try to revolt. Test for eyes. Negative. Did you ever use them? And what did you see? Flowers? Faces? That's nothing. If you really looked, you would have been blinded. There's so much to see. You should have knocked your eyes out onto a plate and offered them to the worms, and you should have said, I am conquered. Test for tail. Positive. How does it feel? Give it a swish. Go bananas. I won't watch. Have a little wiggle. Test for skin. Negative. Too many things happened to your skin. There were so many hands, so many nights in the open, cold air striking your wrists, your neck, and you thought, now. I'm ready now. Test for fur. Negative. Test for scales. Positive. Rain will slide glistening off you. Wind won't bother you. Teeth will break against you. Leaves will protect you. Hands won't come near you. Did you hear what I said? Hands won't come near you. Test for teeth. Long. Sharp. How strange. I don't. Stop smiling. Test for safety. Inconclusive. Let go. Let go. Test for tongue. Bitten. Torn. Test for safety. Negative. Test for knees. Broken. Test for doors. Open. All of them. Test for fog. It enters. Fog enters.
In the top drawer of a unit in the attic of my mother's house lies a zip-locked bag of my own hair. Some 8 inches of it, tangled and braided, packed tight, and stuffed lightlessly at the back. I sucked the air out myself in one whooping gulp before zipping it closed. I've long exhaled the air that was in that bag, but maybe some of my breath remains inside. By now, there must surely have been some decay, a dimming of colour, a fragility to the fraying ends, an encroaching musty smell. But whenever I visit my mother, I forget about this once part of me, cramped between spewing envelopes of old photos and spooled charging cables bereft of their devices. I always intended to donate it, but in having not donated it, the intention means nothing. What is the language of intent without the act of carrying a thought through? Our hair continues to grow in the days and weeks following the moment of death. I cut my hair in a thick August 2 years back after lying sick, sweltering for a week and a half, after swimming wild and ingesting something unnameable. Forgetting about the hair in proximity and remembering it at distance. Airlocked, inert. I moved house twice with this bag intact. Sat in a passenger seat for 180 miles with it in my back pocket before stashing it nowhere in particular and moving on again. Whatever purpose it could have served in donation has been replaced by the relative purposelessness of holding a set of memories particular to myself. So the bag persists only as a referencing tool, an index for a selfish secondary archive. Our hair is dead from the moment it leaves the follicle. Next time I go back to that house, I will stand on a chair and I will pull myself into the attic with my shoulders knocking the hatch, and I will open the bag and I will take the hair out and I will notice that it lies there just as it did before, almost black-brown, bedraggled, a little eerie, dimly embered by the light. At the polar opposite of intention, a close friend wears a small metallic capsule and a chain around his neck, which contains a few hairs of his deceased brother. The capsule is a long, thin pill with a subtle engraving. I've never seen him without it, and I've never seen inside. Another friend rides a bike his father gave him, their own, before what was theirs expanded to fill a whole family home, and started with a set of stolen keys. Since their father's passing, they have been riding it into disrepair, red-flecked steel frame shaking, while I've tried to fix it for them. There are infinitely small shards of glass buried, gleaming in the inside of the tyre, like gems. Hair is already materially represented in this collection, but what is not forward-facing, what skirts behind the taxonomic lens, enfolded in breast pockets or dangling from the neck, the practice of warding, talisman making. A small scale of bark cased in a medicine box, though preserved and hallowed by its preservation. This humble object and its unassuming cage suggests only recognition and the reflexive desire to preserve. Seeing a tree as emitting a dead man. Imagine the hand of the person who removed it, their finger and fingernail prying a single flake out from the skin of the tree itself, searching around the edges, testing for give, and when give was found, dragging back with force until it dislodged. Then, how to store it. Pat down pockets, rummage in trouser leg, fingers clasp the only container on board, frustratingly full, so pills out, rattling, snuff spilling, amber motes in the dusk. The surface is burnished, a black luster of wear about the ridges of embossed text, its apothecary seals and paper stickers worried and torn, signatures of habit. Gripped tight, patted reassuringly in a breast pocket, thoughtlessly caressed, buried, unheeding. In miniature portability, it can always be found close to the heart of the carrier, furtively burrowing towards the faithful, into the gatherings of their coats, and jostled by daily rhythms. To place a container in such close proximity to your own, a body which houses a spirit, speaks of something from the inside being repelled, and something from the outside being bolstered, both ward and ballast, a tiny anchor for spiritual teachings, or an amulet to grief. This motion, again and again, testing and prying, around the edges, searching for weakness, worrying and picking, like a scab.
There's this image I want to write about. Date it by holding it between your fingers. You'll see. Thick cardboard, matte and uneven, crumbled. The card cabinet type. It belongs to a small collection of photographs, 12 or so, within the archive at the Swedenborg Society in London. It was taken by Frederick Hudson sometime in the late 1800s. The woman to the left has been identified as Georgiana Houghton, a famous medium and a less famous pioneer of the Surrealist movement. Hair braided in Victorian loops, she appears to be kneeling down, hand raised, facing a spirit. Spirits aren't real, you scoff. That stuff's all superstitious nonsense. There's this image I want to write about. Two women are engaged in conversation, but I cannot hear. Or perhaps they are saying nothing, and everything is being said by the way they are looking at each other. Nothing is being said, you mutter. There's no such thing as communication between the living and the dead. There's this image I want to write about, and yet I seem unable to compose this story with the tools that you have given me. And so I write to you in the hope that you will adapt, so that I may begin to unpack the complexities and write the fuller, richer, more complete version of this picture's history. There's this image I want to write about, so it is here that I must ask you momentarily to part with your rational and your reason, fateful sentinels. They have no remit within the world I am about to take you to, no place within this phantom correspondence. So I beg of you, leave them there, howling at the door. There's this image I want to write about, so let me paint this portrait in the knowledge that there are other ways of seeing and other ways of being. Let's not only think around, but think through. Let's not only look at, but look sideways, look with, and look beyond. Let me take what's left of your imagination for a slip and a slide, and leave aside claims of scientific reason, double exposures, and darkroom trickery. There are limits to your reason, but no limits to imagination. So isn't it perhaps just a little bit more fun? Let me take you with me. Float weightless between the worlds, with no distinction between the real and the surreal, physical or spiritual. There's a pitching towards the uncanny, a craving for the otherworldly. Don't let cold, hard, empirical fact hold you back. There's this image I want to write about. Write back to me when you feel your reality slipping and expanding, your mind bending, and I shall set about composing this ghost story.
When I touched the letter, thoughts opened up to me, as though it was a portal to some kind of knowledge still surrounding us. Strangely, the handwritten version contained symbols of the sun and the moon, which are omitted in the transcribed edition, perhaps because these symbols went out of fashion, presumably because alchemy has mostly been regarded as an embarrassing oddity since the Age of Enlightenment. Numbers, facts, and measurements have enjoyed much more attention than the spiritual experiments of the alchemists, who, as psychoanalysts avant la lettre, fathomed the secrets of the elixirs of the self. These prepared them for great things and great success in many different areas. These two open, lively, and gregarious men, through the creation of the Stockholm Exegetic and Philanthropic Society, considerably contributed to the development of medicine at the time. Sun and moon. Such a pretty couple. A bouquet of energetic counterparts, or counterpoints. While the one fulfills its purpose during the daytime, the other repurposes all in the night, a strategy from which social media could learn much. Popular music has been trying, artificially and for a long time, to integrate this encounter with these semi-mystical symbols of the self. To the alchemist, there was no domain of life where the planets were not involved. The Greeks had a personified view of the planets, like friends. Each was a being in their own right, and played a part in every level relating to woman, man, and nature. More intriguing than gender is the means by which the moon wields its force and influence. Them they are considered a luminary, but them they produce no light of their own accord. Them they are reliant upon the sun's light to reflect, mirror, them their image to our earth. This method of projecting light makes the moon a symbol of subtlety. Clarity, reflection, and indirect deduction are gained by passive means, emotionally, intuitively, and progressively, like the lyrics of a song. A perfect match, I would say. Turn lead into gold, baby. How is this otherwise reflected in pop music? The frontman is more than a moon performer. He is the messenger of a larger organisation. Their image, a mirror of the conceptualized sun organisation, the public face that is needed in order to gather support for a larger organisation's goals. Alchemy is all about harnessing ideas into the material sphere. It is about recreating the world according to your design. Paracelsus once said, "Just as the sun shines through a glass, the sun and the moon and all planets, as well as all the stars and the whole chaos, are in man." Pop is an encounter with this universe, a chaotic yet deeply orderly engagement with the Dionysian, unbound, mediated by Apollonian tunes. That is why we are all attracted to good music. When the elements of rhythm, melody, harmony, and lyric come together, we can literally be moved by it. We know what we like, but at the same time it is often difficult to put a finger on the exact reasons why certain songs speak to us so intensely. Popular music often has this effect. We love it, but we don't know why.
I think it's the only hit song about telepathy that you can't help but wonder.
Was it Destiny? I don't know yet.
Yeah, I've heard this one before. Remember it like yesterday. A dream before the scroll I was carrying under my arm tumbled across the pavement, unfolding itself in prayer.
Was it just by chance? Could this be kismet?
On the way to put up some posters, I blinked, peeled back the eye to see magic alphabets fizzle on the tarmac, felt the tack rolling between my fingers, imbued with radio static, rolled into tomorrow, right off the bonnet, ominous, oily and glittering. Lost again. I was always doing this. The inside of my pocket vibrates with a message that reads,
"Can I have your exact location?"
But it's too hard to tell, really. There could be so many. The man behind the counter asks me if I'm looking for anything in particular, and I want to say,
"Something in my consciousness told me you'd appear."
But sometimes, so I'm told, it's better to say nothing. Better than Blur, Suede, Pulp, Oasis. Better than One More Forgotten Hero and a world that doesn't care. The living may try to remember the dead, but the dead do not forget her.
No, I'm always touched by your presence, dear.
Could never mistake that opening A chord, how it swiftly gives way to a pulsing 4/4 sizzle, and the video, her blue eyeshadow and wispy platinum hair backlit like a halo, a televised angel, all cheekbones and electricity, eclipsing everything. We were mesmerised. I met a man once who went to every show on her world tour, a real devotee, owned this record shop in the city. I wonder how he got the time off. When the band first started out, they'd shared a flat with a few cockroaches and a poltergeist. They do love the angst of adolescence, he told me. You know, I'd thought about it, becoming an angel myself, working on some new material, fantasies of the day when I might say,
"Oh, it's a dream come true,"
or
"We really couldn't do this without the love and support of our fans,"
teary-eyed and glossy-faced as I walk off set.
You can read my hand. I've got no defence.
But today, it seems enough to jot down a few things, add to my lists.
the electricizers, ghost flametricizers, the capital dreamers, Murray and the machines, angel snake and the machines, hellish love and the left eyes, disco kiss, dark plasma kiss, of water and spirit, arcana celestia, New Jerusalems, Baudelaire's teapots, divinity divisions, the colossal souls.
I found myself back in that record shop, the one that man surrendered to worship. Fingering through the A to Z, the lights start to shake.
When you sent your messages, whispered loud and clear.
The lyrics remind me of a boyfriend I had, before the bonnet made me glisten, before the peeling back. He'd look at a card, and when he touched my arm, I could tell him exactly what it was.
When we play at cards, you use an extra sense.
We meet in dreams still now. Queen of Hearts, he'll say when I cross over.
It's not really cheating.
And melt into light. Our shared talisman, that record, which we had to sell. Minty mint when the work dried up. Fate of cockroaches and poltergeists. Too much angst. They'd have eaten us alive. It's got to be here.
Floating past the evidence of possibilities.
A vibrational breeze breathes down upon my chest, pulling me closer into the ring of its halo.
We could navigate together, psychic frequencies.
Psst.
Coming into contact with our outer entities.
Gotcha. The wind slams the door behind me as I leave, drawing back the rain with a kiss. It whistles in my ear. She loves you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Passion rebuilding the world anew. The tides of the river break, white noise, as I spot a peeping dandelion looking up. Clutching the record inside my coat, I bend down to whisper, "Can I tell you a secret?" And it blushes. Oh, concrete child. The birds quit pecking out the worms to conspire with the streetlights, harlequined and strobing. Stay awake at night and count your REMs while you're talking to your super friends. They proclaim through pulsing flashes of light as the dance floors of the city extend outward, paved with desire, perfect beauty. A hand on my arm.
I am still in touch with your presence, dear.
Celestial influx, marginalia redux. Picture him, like the schoolchild you once were. Furrowed brow, upturned mouth, underscoring your comment with incredulity, scorn, laughter. A revision, addition not to dismantle or dethrone, but poke, press, and prod. Come one, come all. Curious spirits, anarchic nymphs, avid book thrashers. Writing begins with breath, just as reading can begin with ghosts, and note-taking can begin in the margins. It's an elusive, generative literary economy of which Samuel Taylor Coleridge was a prolific player. Call him a literary omnivore, a compulsive list maker, a college dropout, a poet, a philosopher, an addicted scribbler, or a scribbling addict. Born in the year of Swedenborg's death, STC was a master marginalia maker. There are 450 of his annotated books still extant. Not anomalous, nor vandalic, but exceptional. Coleridge's notes catch fire for their spontaneity, hilarity, criticality, and unpredictability. Sometimes sprawling and contemplative, his scribbles glide across several pages. Other times, the bite comes crackling, frowning, and toothy. Impulsive as the act may be, when we write in the margins, we are paying attention. to our own developing thoughts, reasoning, and critical practice. We are quarrelling as much as we are writing to absent friends, ministering over private fantasy dialogues where the dead can only explain themselves so far. How could she? It is a practice that ties Edgar Allan Poe, Sylvia Plath, the bedridden Marlene Dietrich, David Foster Wallace, and the student who borrowed the book before you, the librarian's taboo, leaving mini missives. By placing your own words beside those you admire, what better way to speak to the dead? Coleridge's own influential theology owed much, or shared much, with Swedenborg, an idealistic philosophy that positioned the mind as an active, free will life force and the human spirit in a dynamic, collaborative relationship with the divine. But ghosts must, sometimes, be summoned and then challenged. There is a quiet room in hell, a dank and musty corner for the undecipherable undead, the misunderstood. Like whispers, etchings can be lost or misplaced, repositioned, stolen, or manipulated. Coleridge's writing takes as eager an eye to decipher as a Latin scholar's tongue takes time to tackle declensions. Reading him, reading Swedenborg, is a thick, polyglottal soup. Faint cursives, floating, masquerading, the original comments section. In 1820, Charles Lamb ended his essay on book borrowers, the two races of men, with an affectionate tribute to his old friend. Reader, if thy heart overfloweth to lend them, lend thy books, but let it be to such a one as S.T.C. He will return them, generally anticipating the time appointed, with usury. Enriched with annotations, tripling their value, I counsel thee, shut not thy heart, nor thy library, to S.T.C. Coleridge said, I will not be long here, Charles, and gone, you will not mind my having spoiled a book in order to leave a relic. We say, lend thy books to scribblers all. We say, what splayed footprints, what marks in the shore, what relics will you leave?
So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost, that their loss is no disaster. What is something before it's found? The answer to this question isn't always lost. An almost empty cigarette packet passed on by the right person's hand. A small chunk of bark from exactly the right place, the right tree, made into quick talismans. Thrust into a new ad hoc existence, they sit close, gently emitting memory for as long as they're needed. Conduits, they transport the two momentarily back to the source of an overwhelming devotion. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Nudged gently awake by church bells, we find our limbs. Their formation hasn't changed since we closed our eyes 8 hours ago. This is rare, I think. An embracing pair like the Pompeii lovers who might have been meant to. We clutch, breathe deep, anticipate the shattering. Any object can become a sponge, absorbing memory instead of moisture, quietly retaining the essence of a place, a person, of histories lived. There's mysticism at play, in the notion that ancient touch or breath can be held for years, centuries, as long as the imagination dictates, in the material components of a space. In seeing this, a romantic, tenuous logic takes place. He sat under this tree to think. This tree held him. This tree still holds him. A fragment is taken, transformed. It's driven by urgency and uncertainty. He held these, now I hold them, so he holds me. All surfaces become bruisable through this lens, vulnerable to the impact of words spoken, the stain of action. I asked for a cigarette, hoping we might share it together. He doesn't want one. but hands me the pack. 2 left. The room has no windows, but it's big, and grey light floods in from above. I put one in my mouth, light it, and slide the pack into my left breast pocket. As we leave the room, stained and bruised, I decide I'll keep it there until the next time we meet and he gives me another to replace it. Tethering me to this moment, and to some imagined future, a cord falls silently behind me from my chest.
You can tell by the eyes I was a sensitive child. I felt like a guest in my parents' house. I wouldn't pull my socks up when I was told. They rumbled disobediently around my ankles. My hands were always captured by movement, clutching suddenly at the cotton white of my pinafore. On the mahogany chair I could levitate, my little feet not able yet to touch the floorboards, button-bound in their soft leather boots. I was always glancing, as if I had seen something, moving in a corner, behind the dresser, behind the curtain. I was less in curiosity than in annoyance with the world. I stared out blankly, I peeled wallpaper damply, I blinked slowly, one eye at a time. Children are inclined one way or the other. I was a child of the left eye. Children of the right eye are gentler creatures. They are shy with eyelids of doe-skin blue. They finish their oatmeal and say please and thank you. And when their hair is brushed, they do not scream, even if it pulls and hurts. They worry a lot about the weather, rattling crockery, dropped knitting needles, frisky animals. They stay away from the weeds in the garden, belladonna, deadly nightshade, the poison ivy, the rosehip bush. They do not wipe their nose on their sleeve. They may instead use an embroidered handkerchief. And when the cat catches a sparrow, they bury it kindly. They do not return in a week to unearth it. A child of the left eye does not think or act so sweetly. They climb trees too high, branches snap beneath their shoes, they break fingers and buckle and bruise. Often I fell, dizzy as a dreidel. I was never good as gold, I was no one's little angel. The right eye child is at home in the world, the left eye child must learn they are hallowed. And I knew from the day I dropped from the tree that the ground beneath would certainly outlast me. I could never tell whether I was very young or very old indeed. Like the whirl of a skipping rope, like rain on chalk, the licorice chewed and spat out dark. Some children are angels, some children are ghosts, always play back and forth behind that curtain. Little girls of the left eye may always be children. Actually, maybe they are always half dead. A little closer to where we come from, that dark unknown. And we only become less and then more dead as we grow. And it becomes harder to tell who are the angels, and who are the ghosts, and who are the children.